Alright, in today's video I'm talking about fresh spicy fragrances, more leaning masculine, so these are top 15 masculine fresh spicy fragrances. Find out about them coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, I'm talking about fresh spicy fragrances. Fresh fragrances meaning they're not going to be warm whatsoever. Most of these, most likely all of them, do not have any warm notes. They might have minute amounts of warm notes, perhaps vanilla or resins and amber and things like that. But most of these are very, very fresh. Spicy, aromatic, herbal, green, you name it. Citrusy as well. Really great stuff. You can wear these all throughout the year, but perfect in the heat. I'll let you know what they are before I do, though. If this is your first time tuning into my channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So if you're a woman, do you wear fresh, spicy fragrances? And if you do, what are they? If you're a man, what are the ones that you wear? These are, as I said, mostly masculine leaning. Some are targeted male, some are just unisex target but leaning masculine. We'll start off with the first one at number 15. This is a rank list. I go into a classic that my dad wore. It's Dior's Eau Sauvage. This one right here. Wonderful, wonderful fragrance. Absolutely love this one. It's a combination of citruses with lemon and bergamot and lots of aromatics. There's spices and spiciness to these aromatics. Of course, there's also Oakmoss here, but it's lemon, bergamot, basil, Oakmoss, vetiver, rosemary, jasmine, coriander, musk, and cumin. Loads of spices, as I said, the coriander, the cumin, but Oakmoss itself has a spiciness. The basil and the rosemary, even though herbs and aromatics have spiciness as well, so it's a nice contrast of the citruses with some flowers and spiciness and aromatics. Great scent. Dior Eau Sauvage is a wonderful classic that I still love and wear to this day. Number 14, it's LALIQUE White, this one right here. A bit more modern, but also citrusy and very spicy, but there's a freshness about it. And even though this one in the dry down, there is a little bit of an ambery touch, but it's all very, very fresh. So you won't notice the warmth until it's drying down. So as soon as it dries down, you're going to experience the warmth, but it's all very, very citrusy and spicy up top. There's a little bit of a tartness about it as well, but black pepper, Petitgrain, Tamarind, Elemi, Cardamom, Nutmeg, violet, cedar, musk, Oakmoss, and amber. But either way, it's LALIQUE White at number 14. At number 13, it's MIZENSIR's Blue Gin. Very, very fresh, spicy. Also very cooling and ice-cold experience with lots of juniper berry. The juniper berry has a spiciness to it, but this also has mandarin, and so it's a very, very citrusy experience. But again, it's very, very ice-cold, sometimes sharp and metallic as well. It definitely has a cooling effect. It's juniper berries with mandarin. There's Sichuan pepper, black pepper, Cascalone, which is a fresh aquatic ingredient, Cetalox, which is like ambroxan, tonka beans, and cardamom. So there's definitely a spicy edge here, and the spices that are used in this particular fragrance are definitely fresh spices. That's why this particular video theme is fresh spicy fragrances, and you're not going to experience warm fragrances. So if you like more fresh experiences, even with spices, because you know we've got cardamom, coriander, and things like that, cumin, which lean fresh, versus nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon, which go warm. So we're not going to experience the warm notes in this particular video. But a great scent. As I said, it's very, very ice cold. MIZENSIR Blue Gin. Recently featured that in an ice cold fragrances video. If you like those kind of fragrances that want to cool you off or can cool you off in the heat of the summer, definitely check that video out. Next up at number 12, it's CARON, Pour un Homme, the CARON Le Matin, a new fragrance. Have you guys sampled this one yet? This is definitely a very fresh, spicy take on the original CARON Pour un Homme, which went really warm with the vanilla and the musk, or is it amber, in the dry down. But either way, lots of lavender in that one with vanilla. And this one, they've actually taken Lavandin, not lavender, in this particular experience. So it's definitely got a little bit of a different lavendery vibe. But it's very, very fresh notes. Lots of ginger here. It's got a very spiciness, geranium, aromatic, spicy, along with patchouli, guaiac wood, Oakmoss, bergamot, lemon tree, Petitgrain. So it's got a tartness and an astringency, a bit of a metallic, sharp experience, but all very, very fresh and spicy, and also very, very classy. And it kind of pays tribute to the original, but as I said, this is definitely not warm whatsoever, whereas the original definitely went warm and ambery with the vanilla. This one doesn't. CARON Pour un Homme de CARON Le Matin, number 12. Next, going to the house of ACQUA di Parma. It's Colonia Club, this one right here with the dots between the club. There's two of them. I don't care for the original, the first one. I really like this one with the dots or the periods between the letters in club. This is very fresh and spicy, and it features a prominent note of shiso. Shiso to me is kind of like mint with maybe like cilantro or watercress or something. So there's this very unique smell about this particular herb, which is prominent here. It's very, very fresh, and it's also very spicy. Along with the shiso, you've got rosemary, bergamot, lemons, pink pepper, black pepper, cedar, and musk. It's a very fresh experience, also green and herbal and aromatic, and you do experience the citruses here, but there's also a little bit of woods and musk in the experience. It's an eau de cologne, so you gotta overspray this stuff to really make it last, but it smells fresh, and it's perfect in the heat. So it's ACQUA di Parma Colonia Club at number 11. Moving on to a men's classic fragrance, going to the house of florists, it's number 89. This is definitely more classic. In fact, this, to me, smells more classic than Eau Sauvage. Although I think Eau Sauvage came out in the 60s, this came out in the 50s, number 89. So it definitely has more of a classic edge, whereas I think Eau Sauvage also had gotten reformulated in the early 2000s. I don't think Florist has. I don't know, I could be wrong. But Florist number 89 is a very, very amazing fragrance that still smells great today, even though it has all those classic touches. And it's very, very aromatic and spicy. It's kind of like a barbershop slash chypre, fougere chypre kind of a thing, featuring lots of lavender, neroli, orris, orange, bergamot, nutmeg, sandalwood, cedarwood, vetiver, musk, oak moss, and rose. Definitely very classy and gentlemanly, and I think these are the kind of fragrances that Florist is known for, and I'm surprised it's still sticking around to this day with this particular fragrance and how popular it is. I know a lot of you guys comment and ask me about this particular fragrance, and definitely deserves this list. Again, this is a masculine leaning list, but this is definitely a male targeted release. It's Florist number 89 at number 10. Do you know that one? Do let me know. Put a comment down so I can find out. Moving on to another British house, it's Blenheim Bouquet from the house of Penhaligon's. This is definitely one I wore in the late 90s and I really, really loved. I like its astringency and sharp lemony sourness to it. It's got lemon and lime, but there's also a spice in the background. There's loads of spices. You can totally smell it as soon as you put your nose to it. It kind of smells like lemon grove next to a pine forest. So you're smelling the lemons, the juiciness, the wet drippiness, and the tart sourness. Also this kind of pine, camphoric, green, forest-like smell all rolled into one. Along with that, the lemon, lime, and the pine, you've got black pepper and lavender. So there's definitely kind of a light barbershop-y thing happening in the background as well. It smells amazing. I really like it. Just imagine, you know, like lemon drops, very lemon, you know, candies, like hard candies, with like a piney kind of a background to it, something like that. Very interesting, very delicious, and perfect cooling fragrance. Blenheim Bouquet at number 9. The next we're going to House of Amouage. It's Memoir Man. Very fresh, spicy here. And it features a prominent wormwood note, so it kind of has a licoricey, anise-like experience here. But there's definitely a smokiness in the background. You can experience it, and it eventually settles to something a little more smoky, incensey with a little bit of a leather experience. It's complex compared to everything else I've spoken about so far, but it's wormwood, it's mint, incense, basil, tobacco, leather, sandalwood, guaiac wood, vetiver, oak moss. So eventually it settles to an earthy, woody experience. No amber here, there's definitely no warmth, but definitely has the dense experience of the woods and the dry down. Amouage Memoir Man, it's a great licoricey fragrance with that mintiness. I think it's a great combination. I wish it was a little more popular is what I was going to say, and I wish it was a little more beefier. I wanted something a little more beefy from that fragrance. Unfortunately, it's not. So recently I ran out of my 30 ml bottle of New York Intense from the House of Parfums de Nicolai. I recently bought a new one from the ZGO store here, but this is an amazing classic, once again, classic leaning men's fresh spicy fragrance. Although I believe this is a unisex targeted release, but to me it smells very masculine, and it's more like a masculine offering. And it's a chypre style, so it's got lots of oak moss here with bergamot, lavender, citron, black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, civet, and petitgrain. And even though it's got the cinnamon and cloves to warm it up a little bit, but it's very, very fresh experience. There's definitely more fresh experience experience here than the warmth. Eventually it settles to something a little warmer, but I believe the spices that are in here, the cinnamon and cloves, they're warm spices, do enhance and accentuate the freshness of the fresh notes, because it's mostly fresh notes except for that cinnamon and cloves. There's no mention of amber, vanilla, and resins like myrrh or benzoin, so we're just dealing with the spices here. Great smell, very classic smelling. It does remind me of Bois de Portugal from the house of Creed, but this is a great fragrance from Parfums de Nicolai. So it's New York Intense at number 7. Next, going to the house of Aesop, it's Tacit, or no, I should say it's Tacit. Tacit from the house of Aesop for a great spicy citrusy experience. This is a great one with lots of yuzu. Along with the yuzu, grapefruit, pomelo, all have a spiciness to them. There's definitely like a zing to them. So I always associate that particular citrus or that group of citruses to be spicy. So there's definitely the yuzu experience here. It has that kind of zing and spiciness, along with like juicy citruses. So I'm assuming there's some mandarin here, there's some lemon, there's also some bergamot as well. But in addition to those two notes, there's basil, vetiver, and cloves. And even though, as I said, cloves are warm spices, again, just like the New York Intense, it accentuates the spiciness, but it's all very, very fresh and spicy notes. It's a great smell, more citrusy, but lots of spices. Aesop's Tacit at number 6. Going to the house of Xerjoff next. It was a toss-up for me to feature one fragrance from this house, and I was going to feature Torino 21, but I felt like Torino 21 is definitely unisex here. Neo does lean a little masculine, so I went with Neo in this particular video, but I love Torino 21. It also has a kind of a coziness, but this one to me is sharper. It's got vetiver, jasmine, bergamot, neroli, pink pepper, green leaves, and Guaiac wood. Definitely there's a classic men's cologne type of a fragrance experience here. Something like Eau Sauvage or probably Chanel Pour Monsieur, YSL Pour Homme. I don't even think they make that one anymore. But this is got that kind of very bergamot juiciness, but there's definitely lots of male or masculine touches in this particular fragrance to take it into more of a masculine direction. So it's bergamot with citrus flowers and spices and earthy woods and some flowers. Neo from the house of Xerjoff for a great fresh spicy fragrance experience. Moving on to the house of Diptyque, it's Eau de Minte, this one right here. Wonderful, really wonderful classic leaning fragrance, modern and classic at the same time. Unisex targeted and does remind me a little bit of something like Drakkar Noir, but this is Diptyque's take on it. It's got loads of mint here with geranium, nutmeg, patchouli, and rose. It's earthy, it's woody, it's aromatic, it's spicy. I believe there's some citruses in here as well to kind of balance out all the kind of spices and herbs together. With a little bit of a light rosiness in the background, you might not even pick it up. Great fragrance from the house of Diptyque, Eau de Minte. Do you guys know that one, and are you a fan of it? Moving on to the house of Tom Ford, it is Beau de Jour, this one right here. Great barbershop fragrance from Tom Ford. A wonderful offering. It's an overdose of lots of lavenders, a couple of different varieties of lavender here in this particular fragrance. So it's a lavender balm pretty much. But you also have this earthy patchouli here. There's a little more of a spicy rosemary note. Oakmoss, mint, basil, amber, and geranium. And even though I mentioned the amber, this doesn't really warm up too much, if at all. It's very fresh and spicy, lots of aromatics and herbs, and there's definitely got to be some like a juicy citrusiness in there as well, just to balance out the herbs. But it's just a great smelling fragrance. Wonderful offering. Glad they moved it into the signature line, because it used to be a what do you call it, a private blend collection fragrance. So definitely deserves to be in this collection, less expensive, and for more people to access it. I think it's a great scent that Tom Ford brand has done. It's Beau de Jour at number 3. You're gonna say, wait a minute, number 2 is a fragrance from the house of Loewe. Yes, Loewe Essentia Pour Homme. I'm displaying the older bottles. Their new bottles are more uniform, but I believe the color has been kept, even though they're going to be more like the Loewe 001 Man bottles. This is so good and a great, great alternative for Polo, Ralph Lauren. If you're looking for an alternative for that, this is a great smell. It came out in the late 80s, whereas Polo came out in the green bottle in the late 70s, and they've kept this in a great, great condition. It's a great, fresh, spicy fragrance with lots of fir, pine tree, lavender, juniper berries, green notes, tarragon, oakmoss, leather, vetiver. Yeah, the leather in this smells decent and pleasant in comparison to the leather in Polo. The current formulation smells really, really bad. I don't care for the leather in that fragrance, but it smells great when you first spray it. Just when it's drying down in the leather there, it's awful. Here, the leather is great, but it's more about the aromatics and spices and woods and the green woods in here. Fantastic smell. I really, really love it, and I love wearing it. It's Loewe Essentia pour Homme. If you're looking for that fragrance, make sure to look for the new bottle. And don't get the Eau de Parfum versus that is the Eau de Toilette. Eau de Parfum in the Essentia pour Homme from Loewe smells like Aventus, or kind of like an Aventus vibe. This is more of that kind of classic men's cologne, barbershop kind of Chypre style fragrance. And then finally, my number one fresh spicy fragrance is Rogue Perfumery's Mousse Illuminée. Delicious fragrance. I absolutely love this one. It's so beautiful. It's a Chypre style with lots of oak moss, and there's Artemisia, white flowers, cypress, olibanum, laurels, white musk, and cedar. And I believe the Artemisia in here is creating something like a licoricey vibe, which is really nice, and it adds a kind of a boozy layer to the fragrance as well. It smells great. There's definitely a foaminess about it, and definitely an experience of the damp forest after it's rained and all this green growth has grown. Fantastic fragrance, amazing. This is an amazing fragrance. I actually got to meet Manuel Cross, the perfumer behind this brand, recently, and glad to have met him. This is still my favorite fragrance from his house. I absolutely love it. It's very, very original, but also very, very paying tribute to the classics for men back in the 70s and 80s and things like that. So, Mousse Illuminée from Rogue Perfumery, my number one favorite fresh, spicy fragrance, masculine leaning. Anyway, those are my favorite fresh, spicy fragrances for you today, top 15. What are your thoughts on these fragrances? Are you a fan of these fragrances? And do you have a favorite fresh, spicy fragrance that you like to wear? Please let me know. Put a comment down so I can find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Alright, we've got one bonus fragrance for you today. Jovoy Paris 21 Conduit Street. And this one definitely has the fresh, spicy qualities. And in comparison to these fragrances, it's a little different, but still has definitely the fresh spiciness here that you want, but it has a little fruitiness and a little vegetal quality, and definitely lots of muskiness from ambroxan. So it's a little different than these fragrances, but I wanted to highlight it because I think it's a great, fresh, spicy fragrance with loads of grapefruit, rhubarb, balsam fir, ambroxan, woods lavender, and bergamot. So there's definitely a citrusy experience, and then of course that zing and spice from the grapefruit here. You'll definitely experience the rhubarb in here. It has a kind of like a gelatinous, succulent kind of a smell to it. Like if you ever like really figure out what it smells like, you'll notice it here. It has a kind of a light vegetal and fruitiness. And then of course the lavender also comes in to add its own kind of a spiciness to the fragrance. Really great scent. A lot of people do compare this to Tigar. I can see the similarities. It's the grapefruit and the ambroxan, but this has a lot more things happening here in comparison to Tigar from Bulgari. Either way, 21 Conduit Street from Jovoy is the bonus fragrance for you today. Have a good one. Bye-bye.